When we see you, we find strength to face the day. In your presence, all our fears are washed away. 'Cause when we see you, we find strength to face the day. In your presence, all our fears are washed away, washed away. Hosanna, Hosanna, you are the God who saves us, worthy of all our praises. Hosanna, Hosanna, come have your way among us. We welcome you here, Lord Jesus. Come have your way among us. We welcome you here, Lord Jesus. Come have your way among us. We welcome you here, Lord Jesus.
Good morning, brothers and sisters in the Lord. Welcome to our online worship service. And this morning, we'll be finishing our study in the book of Habakkuk. And this morning's passage is taken from Habakkuk chapter 3, verses 16 to 19. And the title of the message this morning is Trusting God, That Is All. Why don't we just begin with a word of prayer? Lord, as we end this book, Lord, study, I just pray that we will continue to you will continue to strengthen our faith, and that, Lord, whatever doubts that we have, we'll give it to you, so that, Lord, our doubts will continue to turn into faith. That, Lord, our doubt will continue to turn into trusting in you no matter what. So, Lord, as we end our study in this book, may our trust in you be stronger than ever. This is what we ask, and this is what we pray for. In Jesus' mighty name. Amen. You already know well that the book of Habakkuk is all about faith in God. You know, even though in the first few chapters or in their first few studies, Habakkuk have continually asked questions, or even questions about his doubt, about God's care, about God's fairness, about God's presence, but we see that in the end, all of his doubts have turned into faith in the Lord. As a matter of fact, the key verse in the whole book of Habakkuk is found in Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 4, that says, "The righteous shall live by his faith." You know, the book of Habakkuk challenges us to put our faith in God during the worst of times. Okay, when Habakkuk reached the end of his journey, he has moved from a place of doubting to a place of trust. He has moved into a place of doubting God to a place of putting his faith and trusting in God no matter what. As we all know, God revealed to Habakkuk that his country, or Judah, will be invaded and will be ransacked, and it will be conquered by the Babylonians, and that his people will lose everything, what they've built up, you know, what they have worked for through the years. It will be taken by the Babylonians, and it will be gone. And so here we could really see that in spite of all these things, we could see that the book of Habakkuk challenges each one of us to learn to trust God no matter what. Let me ask you this question. When the country was hit with COVID-19 pandemic, how did that affect your faith in God? Especially last March and April, when it was really the start here in the Philippines. How did that affect your faith in God? Was your faith strong enough to stand up to that kind of a trial or a crisis or a pandemic? Did you still rejoice in the Lord even of what happened to you? Maybe you've lost an income, maybe you've lost someone, maybe someone that you know or someone that you love were infected, or maybe just the inconvenience of all this ECQ and GCQ. Was your faith strong enough to trust God no matter what? Or maybe during those times, maybe you've lost a loved one, maybe you got sick. Was your faith strong enough to trust God no matter what? You know, that is the place to which the book of Habakkuk brings us at the end of chapter 3. How do we exercise our faith in God during the worst times of our life? You know, Habakkuk shares to us 3 things that he did. That even when he was facing the worst calamity of his lifetime, he chose to trust in God. And this morning, let us look into these verses together as we see on what we can learn so that our faith in the Lord will be strengthened. Let's begin. In verse 16 it says, I hear and my body trembles and my lips quiver at the sound. Rottenness enters into my bones. My legs tremble beneath me. Yet I will quietly wait for the Lord of trouble to come upon people who invade us. And so here, the first thing that we can do so that we can trust God no matter what is to wait patiently for God even when we are afraid. Wait patiently for God even when we are afraid. Again, it says here, I hear and my bones tremble, my lips quiver at the sound, rottenness enters into my bones, my legs tremble beneath me, yet I will quietly wait for the day of trouble to come upon people who invade us. You know, God had told Habakkuk about the coming invasion by the Babylonians or the Chaldeans. God has described the arrogance, the violence, the cruelty of these Babylonians in a very, very clear detail, especially when we study chapter 1 and chapter 2. But God also told Habakkuk that this great nation, God will use this nation to judge Israel, but God, in the end, will also judge Babylon for their sins. And as Habakkuk heard these things, that Babylon, the Babylonians will conquer them, will invade them, will capture them, Habakkuk was terrified. And his heart really maybe had pounded. It says here, his lips quivered, and he feels physically weak, and he could barely stand. Habakkuk was not just dealing with the possibility of the attack, but really with the certainty of it. Babylon's conquest is certain, and because of that, he was very afraid, and his fear affected him even physically. Have you dealt with that kind of fear? When you were just so fearful that your legs shake. This is not just a fear of spiders or a fear of cockroaches, but maybe a fear that maybe you have a sickness, maybe you've lost, maybe you don't have a future whatsoever, and you were just so afraid to look into life, and that you lost your hope, and it has affected you physically. How have you dealt with that extreme fear? What do you do when fear grips you in such a way that your heart is just pounding and your legs seems to give away? Do you do positive thinking? Do you do deep breathing or those exercises that others do? Do you just say, oh, let's not talk about it? How do you exercise faith in God during the worst of times? You know, the Bible tells us, or Habakkuk tells us, to wait patiently for God even when we are afraid. It says here, yet I will quietly wait for the day of trouble to come upon people who invade us. Yes, my legs tremble. Yes, my body trembles. Yes, my lips quiver at the sound of all these invaders. But this is what I will do. I will wait patiently for God, even when I am afraid. God had told Habakkuk that the Babylonians are going to invade. There's no stopping that. It was going to happen. And because of this, in the midst of his fear, Habakkuk chose to wait patiently for God. You know, the word wait, or the word quietly wait, or in other version, I will wait patiently, comes from the Hebrew word meaning to rest, or to settle down, or to remain. Let me say it again. The word wait, or wait patiently, or quietly wait, you know, it comes from the Hebrew word meaning to rest, to settle down, to remain. You know, it is the same word we find in the Ten Commandments when God tells the people to rest on the Sabbath day. Okay? It's the same thought. You know, it's the same principle that you rest on the Sabbath day because the Lord also rested on that day. It's not just na pahaway, but you put your trust, your rest in God. It is the same word we find in the book of Hebrews when it says that we are to rest, that the Israelites will rest because they will now be in the promised land. Okay? When God promised to give them this promised land, the Israelites will rest from their enemies. It's the same idea, it's the same thought, it's the same principle. Here, Habakkuk determined to wait patiently, to quietly wait, or to rest, or to settle down, or to remain in the Lord during this time of trial. Habakkuk rested in the Lord, or Habakkuk find rest. He find rest in the Lord. And you know, this is the same thought when we have studied in Philippians chapter 4, no, verses 6 to 7, it says, do not be anxious about anything, no? But in everything, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your request to God, and the peace of God that transcends all understanding will guard your heart and your mind in Christ Jesus. It's the same thought. When you rest in the Lord, when you just give everything to the Lord, and He will give you the rest, the peace that you need. So how do you exercise faith during the worst of times? We are told to wait patiently for the Lord, even when we are afraid. So brothers and sisters, rest yourself in the Lord, or find rest in the Lord. The second way where we could continually exercise our faith and our trust in God in times of crisis, as we could see here in the book of Habakkuk, in verse 17 to 18, it says, though the fig tree should not blossom, nor fruit be on the vines, the produce of the olive oil, and the fields yet yield no food. The flocks be cut off from the fold, and there be no herd on the stalls. Yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will take joy in the God of my salvation. And now this is one of the most comforting, powerful, and just encouraging verses in the Bible. And this is written during a time where Judah was really in crisis because they were about to be conquered. They were about to be ransacked. They were about to be invaded. And so here, the second thing we could do is we are to rejoice. Choose to rejoice in God even when everything in life goes wrong. That's very, very difficult. Choose to rejoice in God even when everything in life goes wrong. You know, this verses represents one of the strongest expression of faith that you can find in the whole Bible. As Habakkuk determines to just rejoice in God even when everything else in life goes wrong. And here in verse 17, we see three scenarios, or Habakkuk paints three scenarios, and each scenarios we can really relate it in our life. You know, the first scenario is this. It says, though the fig tree should not blossom, nor fruit be on the vines. This is a very, very familiar verse. You know, the blossom, okay, the blossom of the fig tree and the grapes forming in the vine refers to those things you are trusting for the future. Diba? You know, they are a symbol of hopes to come. Diba? When something blossom, okay, maybe it's just a flower or something like that, it is a tangible sign that that's something, that there is something is coming in the future. Right? It is just a blossom. It is just a flower. But it is a sign, or it is a tangible sign that the figs and the grapes are coming in this verse, or in this scenario that Habakkuk has been saying. Okay? So, he said, though the fig tree should not blossom, nor fruit be on the vines. So in other words, in this scenario, there's no sign for the future. Why? Because the fig tree does not bud. There's no blossom. There are no grapes on the vine. So in other words, what Habakkuk was trying to say here is that there is no visible sign that things will ever come, or good things will ever come for me, or for you. Okay? Do you get the point? Do you get the point? So, when Habakkuk said, though the fig tree should not blossom, nor there's no fruit be on the vines, what Habakkuk was trying to say here is that there is no visible sign that things will be brighter in the future. So let me ask you this question. Do you have hopes and dreams for the future, but there's no visible sign that they will ever come to, what do you call this? It will come to pass? Do you have hopes and dreams for the future, but there's no visible signs that they will ever come to pass? It seems that your future is bleak. Do you ever feel like saying, God, please give me a little sign, some type of hope that things are going to change for the better, something that I could hold on? Then that is what Habakkuk is trying to say here. That, Lord, the fig tree does not blossom. There's no fruit in the vine. In other words, the future is not good for us. And if you will take this personally, it's like saying, Lord, the future is not good, or the future does not look good. Habakkuk would tell you, when you have nothing to hold on to for your future, hold on to God, and that will be enough. Maybe you're in a job right now and there's no, or it seems that there's no promotion in the way. Maybe you're already in your 30s and you're still single and you're asking God, Lord, where is this man or where is this woman that you have promised or whatsoever that will be my partner? Lord, it seems that my future is bleak. You know, Habakkuk is telling us that when you have nothing to hold on to for the future, hold on to God, and that will be enough. You know, Habakkuk is saying, you know what? Trust God no matter what. Though there's no visible sign of hope for the future, nothing tangible that you can see or touch or grasp, yet still rejoice in the Lord. Rejoice in the Lord. That's what he's saying. Even though there's no visible sign of hope for the future, there's nothing tangible that you can see that your future will be brighter, still rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord, or rejoice in God, even when everything in life goes wrong. That's the first scenario. The second scenario is this. He said, though the produce of the oil fail, and the fields yield no food. Okay? The produce of the oil fail, and the fields yield no food. You know, the olive crop and the fields here refers to the things that you are trusting in the present. Okay? They're a symbol of your present means. The olive crop and the fields. Okay? That's what you have right now. Okay? Before, when it says the fig tree should not blossom and there's no fruit in the vines, it refers to of things to come. But here, when it says the produce of the olive fail and the fields yield no food, it means the things that you are trusting in the present. They're a symbol of your present means. But the scenario that Habakkuk is painting here is that what you are trusting now for your means are letting you down. The olive crop fails. The fields produce no food. They disappoint you. As a matter of fact, it says they fail. Okay, it fails. And the word fails means that they have deceived you. They have disappointed you. The idea is this. You have planted and you have cultivated the field. Okay? You have worked the land. You have tilled the land. You have tended the crops. And now it is harvest time finally. But the crops fail. There's no produce. Okay? The fields produce no food. So it seems all is a deception. All is a disappointment or a discouragement, because all the work, all the effort, it all comes to nothing. Maybe in a scenario, maybe after all years of faithful service to a company, and then you get laid off. Okay? You lose your job and you don't have a current source of income. Okay? You've been working hard, and then you just lose that job. Maybe you invest your money in what looks like to be a good investment, but then the market goes down and everything that you're trusting for the moment just failed. Maybe you stayed healthy, you did everything to stay healthy, and all of a sudden you got sick with maybe a deadly disease, or whatsoever. Or maybe you put years into a relationship with someone, and now that relationship breaks down. All the texts, the long texts, all your sleepless nights, all your time of saying, I love you. Hi. Goodbye, ragabi kapaingnan. You put effort, you put years into it, and then suddenly it just breaks apart. That's what Habakkuk is trying to say here. So the question is, what do you do when all that you are doing, or what do you do when all that you are counting on in the present suddenly comes crumbling down? What do you do when you suffer bitter disappointment in life? It seems that there's no direction for you right now because it seems that you've lost everything. Habakkuk says, trust God no matter what. The produce of the olive fail and the fields yield no food. Continue to rejoice in the Lord. It says here, I will take joy in the God of my salvation. That's what Habakkuk is saying. Even though your present means is failing, even though your present means disappoints you, you are to continually rejoice in the Lord. I will take joy in the Lord, or in the God of my salvation. And the third scenario, it says here, the flock be cut off from the fold, and there be no herd in the stalls. The sheep or the flock and the herd, or the sheep and the cattle, refer to those things that you are trusting from the past. Okay? They are a symbol of your reserves. Okay? But in this scenario, you have no reserves to fall back on. There's no sheep in the pen. Okay? There's no cattle, or there's no herd, okay, in the stalls. Or to put it in layman's term, or in our modern language, there's no money in the bank. There's no reserve that you could fall back to. You don't have a saving or whatsoever. Or maybe your friends and your family have helped you all that they can, and now they say, I've helped you enough, and that's all. Maybe your physical strength is failing you. Your reserve are all used up. In other words, there's nothing that you can fall back on. And that's what Habakkuk is asking. What do you do when you have nothing to fall back on? Habakkuk would say, or Habakkuk would tell you, fall back on God. Fall back on God, because He will be the one to hold you. The flock be cut off from the fold, and there be no herd in the stalls. Yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will take joy in the God of my salvation. It's just easy to trust God, or to put our faith in God when our future is okay, when we have all the future, when we have the present means provided, when you have something to fall back with because we have so many money in the bank, But if all of these things will be taken, what if you don't have nothing to fall back to? Your present means is just so little, and your future looks so bleak. Can you still rejoice in the Lord? Can you still trust in God? That's what Satan told God about Job. When God said to Satan, Satan, have you considered my servant Job? He trusts me. He loves me. And what did Satan say? He said, oh, Job just loves you and trusted you because you have given everything to him. Remove all of those things and he will curse you. I'm just paraphrasing. And indeed, it was removed from him. His wealth, his security, his loved ones, his sons, his daughters, it was taken from him. But what did he do? He still glorified God. He still worshiped the Lord. He still trusted God. Job said, shall we only receive good things from God and not the bad? And he said also, God gives and the Lord take it away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. God showed his true colors when God removed all the blessings. Job continued to trust God no matter what. And in here, Habakkuk is also saying to us or challenging us with the same thing. Trust God no matter what. Do you really trust God, or do you only trust Him when you know His blessing in your life? Let's put this in a challenging or maybe a thought-provoking way. In a thought-provoking or provoking way. Which would make you feel more secure? Shall we say financially? What will make you feel secure financially? Having millions of pesos in the bank? Or having a God who promises to meet your daily needs? I want you to stop for a moment. It's a very, very thought-provoking question. It's a very, very difficult, sometimes even a difficult question to answer. Think about that for a moment. And be brutally honest. Which will make you secure here in life? When you have millions of pesos to fall back on because you have so many savings in the bank? Or just the thought of having a God who promises to meet your daily needs? If the answer is the million of pesos in the bank, then it is safe to say, as what Habakkuk said, that you're not trusting God. You're not trusting God. Why? Because our money can be here today and be gone tomorrow. But if your answer is having a God who promised to meet our daily needs no matter what our situation, then you will really be secure. You will be the most secured person here on earth because you are trusting God no matter what. And here, Habakkuk determined to rejoice in God despite the visible circumstances. Even if I cannot see any visible sign of God's presence or favor in my life, I will still rejoice. I will still trust in Him. Habakkuk was saying, even though there's no visible hope for the future, and what I'm trusting in the present will let me down, or there's no reserve for me from the past to fall back on, still I will rejoice in the Lord. Still I will be joyful. So how do you exercise faith during the worst of times? Choose to rejoice in God, even when everything in life goes wrong. Choose to rejoice in God, even when everything in life goes wrong. And the last way, and we could exercise our faith during the worst of times, is in verse 19. It says, God, the Lord, is my strength. He makes my feet like the deer's. He makes me tread on my high places. To the choir master with string instruments. The third thing we can do to exercise our faith during the worst of times is to find strength in God to lift you up when you are down. Find strength in God to lift you up when you are down. Habakkuk had learned to find his strength in God. Not in his own ability, not in his own strength. Okay? Habakkuk was about to go through rough times. Yes, his legs trembled. Yes, his lips quiver. His body trembles. But still, he find his strength in the Lord. Habakkuk here paints a picture of a deer. Okay? Of a female deer running into the heights of the mountain, steady and unafraid, full of freedom and confidence as she scales the mountain. Do you long to enter into a higher place with God? Then find your strength in Him alone. Trust God to lift you up when you are down. Find your strength in God when you are down. The perfect example that we have is in David. In 1 Samuel chapter 30, we could see here one of David's, or basically maybe David's lowest moment in his life. To make the long story short, they were in their conquests, and when they went back to their families, okay, when they came back to Ziklag, there they saw, or they realized, that David's wives, his men's wives, and children were taken captive by the Amalekites. And it is there in Ziklag that his men wanted to revolt against him. And they say, oh no, our following of David is useless. Our wives, our children are taken. And with this, his men turned against him. His men wanted to stone him. This is one of David's, or probably David's lowest moment. But we read in the passage that David strengthened himself in the Lord. He strengthened himself in the Lord. He found his strength in God to lift him up when he was on his down moment. That is also what we can do. So that our faith will continue to be strengthened. We are to find our strength in God to lift us up when we are down. Whatever that is, draw near to the Lord. Find your strength in God and God alone. And so, how can we exercise our faith in the Lord during the worst times of our life? First, we are called to wait patiently for the Lord, even when we are afraid. Second, we are called to rejoice in God, even when everything in life goes wrong. And third, we are called to find our strength in God to lift us up, even when we are down. And why can we do this? Why can we wait patiently for God? Why can we choose to rejoice? Why can we find strength in God? Why? Why can we all do this? Why? Because of my one and only principle. Because our God is trustworthy. In other words, He is reliable. He can be trusted. The reason why we could wait patiently for God when we are afraid, the reason why we could rejoice in the Lord even when we are down or when life goes wrong, the reason why we could find strength in God to lift us up even when we are down is because our God is trustworthy. You can trust Him. He is reliable. You can rely upon the Lord when you are in the worst of times or when you are in crisis. So as we have reached the end of our journey in our study in the book of Habakkuk, I know that Habakkuk's journey is also our life's journey. We have so many questions about God's dealing. Maybe we have questions about God's character. Just as Habakkuk asked the Lord, Lord, do you care? Lord, are you fair? Lord, are you there? And instead of running from God, Habakkuk brought all of his questions to the Lord. And because of that, his doubt turned into faith. That's why the book of Habakkuk is a book about the faith. The reason we could put our faith in God is because God can be trusted. And I pray that as we end this study, that God will also lead you into a place where you can learn to trust Him no matter what. Where you could run to God whenever you are in crisis. May God help us to continually learn this beautiful lesson that is recorded here in the book of Habakkuk. So once again, I pray that God will lead each one of us to a place where we could continue to learn to trust God no matter what. Trusting God, that is all. So, we could trust God because He is trustworthy and He is reliable. Come to Him in your troubles. Come to Him in your worries. Come to Him in your doubts. Because He can be trusted. He is trustworthy. Let's pray. Lord, we thank You for just this book, wonderful book, Lord. Thank You once again, Lord, for just reminding us that indeed we could wait patiently for You, we could rejoice in You, and we could find our strength in You when we are in the midst of crisis. Because, Lord, You alone can be trusted. And so, Lord, teach us to trust You no matter what. Teach us to come to You, Lord, in every situation that we are in. Lord, thank You for this book of faith that has taught us, Lord, that we are to strengthen our faith even when calamities, crisis comes our way. We thank You, God. This is our prayer in Jesus' mighty name. Amen. God bless you.
He can move the mountains. My God is mighty to save. He is mighty to save. Forever, author of salvation. He rose and conquered the grave. Jesus conquered the grave. So take me as you find me, all my fears and failures, and fill my life again. I give my life to follow everything I believe in. Now I surrender. I surrender. Savior, He can move the mountains. My God is mighty to save. He is mighty to save. Forever, author of salvation. He rose and conquered the grave. Jesus conquered the grave. Savior, He can move the mountains. My God is mighty to save. He is mighty to save. Forever, author of salvation. He rose and conquered the grave. Jesus conquered the grave. Shine your light, and let the whole world see. We're singing for the glory of the risen King. Jesus, shine your light and let the whole world see. We're singing for the glory of the risen King. Savior, He can move the mountains. My God is mighty to save. He is mighty to save. Forever, author of salvation. He rose and conquered the grave. Jesus conquered the grave. Savior, He can move the mountains. My God is mighty to save. He is mighty to save. Forever, author of salvation. He rose and conquered the grave. Jesus conquered the grave. Shine your light and let the whole world see. We're singing for the glory of the risen King. Jesus, shine your light and let the whole world see. We're singing for the glory of the risen King. Jesus, shine your light and let the whole world see. We're singing for the glory of the risen